You may not know this, but I love riding motorcycles. I don't really care what they're powered by, I just love the experience of riding them. Sadly, for various different reasons, I haven't been able to get my hands on many electric motorcycles to review over the last couple of years. In fact, the last electric motorcycle that I reviewed properly was the 2014 Zero S. But this week, I have a new friend to play with. This is the Energica Esse Esse 9. Let's find out if it lives up to the hype. So this is the Energica Esse Esse 9. It's one of 3 motorbikes that you can buy from the Energica family. The first one is the Ego, which is an out-and-out sport bike. Then there's the Eva, which is like a street fighter. And then there's this, which is more of your classic naked bike. It is built on a kind of a standard classic naked bike setup. It's got nice tall handlebars. It's a very relaxed riding position. Perfect as a commuter, perfect as a tourer. You know, I sat on this bike yesterday. I think I did about 250 miles on this yesterday, and I didn't feel tired at the end of the day. So it's a bike that you can go and ride for a very long period of time, provided you've got access to rapid charging stations. And I'm going to come to that in a minute. The Energica Esse Esse 9 has 80 kilowatts, which is not problematic at all. I mean, if you think about it, 80 kilowatts is what the original Nissan Leaf had as its standard motor. And this has 80 kilowatts peak and 80 kilowatts continuous. So it's, you know, you can sit at the high end of the motor demand. Of course, you never will because you're not constantly accelerating or climbing hills. But it does mean that this motor doesn't really overheat. I've not seen any examples of that in the time I've had it. Admittedly, I've only had it a few days. But so far, it's behaved itself very, very well. The Energica Esse Esse 9 is actually the cheapest Energica you can buy at like $20,900 and some dollars. So let's call it $21,000, give or take. It's not a cheap bike. And for that, you'll get kind of 94 miles of range on the combined cycle. The battery pack is moderately sized. It's not quite as big as the battery pack on the Zero, but the thing to note about motorcycles is that their range tests are nowhere near as strict as car range tests. And the other thing to bear in mind is that motorcycles have the aerodynamic qualities of a brick when the big blob on top of them is travelling along at speeds in excess of 50 miles an hour, which is your standard motorcycle riding speed. I mean, like, I don't know many motorcyclists who are happy to sit below 60 or 70 on the freeway. And if you want to go a long distance on the Energica Esse Esse 9, you need to be really careful with your right hand, with your throttle. I rode this yesterday all the way up to Olympia to see Cape Morton Elliott. It was a lovely experience, a lovely day. And I had a bit of range anxiety as soon as I got on the motorway, because around town, this is ideal. I mean, it's fast, it's nippy, it handles really well. But as soon as you get on the motorways, like I am right now, and the range would go down really quickly if I sat on the freeway at this speed all day. And I'd probably get maybe 55, maybe 60 miles, depending on my weight. I mean, I acknowledge that I'm not the slimmest of people, and I'm sure if you were a bit slimmer than me and a little bit more aerodynamic than me, you might get a little bit further. And maybe that's one of the advantages over buying the Ava 107 versus the Esse Esse 9, because you're more like this in the handlebars. But nevertheless, as long as you don't mind stopping and finding a DC quick charger all the time, then you can road trip on this bike very, very easily. So, Nikki, I hear you ask, why is the Energica Esse Esse 9 worth $21,000? This is a premium electric motorcycle. Every single component on this motorcycle is premium. from the Brembo brakes through to the forks, which are all fully adjustable, to the handlebars, to the calipers. I mean, everything on this bike is premium. There's carbon fiber everywhere, even the bits you can't see. It's a high-end premium Italian sports bike, and it feels like a high-end premium Italian motorcycle. It also shifts. It really does. It's got stupidly large amounts of power under your right hand, especially if you have it in sport mode, which I do right now. I'm just going to make sure that it's safe behind me, and then I'm just going to give it a quick squirt. Okay, we're doing 60, 70. That's how quickly it takes to accelerate from 60 to 70 while driving along in sport mode on this bike. So it's fast. It has a top speed of 125 miles per hour. The Ego has a top speed of 150. This one is limited to 125 because you would drain it totally flat in a stupidly short period of time. So this is a premium electric motorbike made by a company that wants to be known for premium motorcycles. And I've got to say, there is nothing about this motorcycle that feels compromised. There is nothing about this motorcycle that feels cheap. Well, I say nothing that feels compromised, unless you're talking about the charging, but we'll come on to that in a second. Now, because of all these batteries on board, the Energica Esse Esse 9 is heavy. And I mean heavy. This thing weighs 630 pounds. You don't feel it when you're going at speed. I'm doing 60 right now, and I don't feel that I'm on a massively heavy motorcycle. But I tell you what, when you brake in a hurry, you feel the weight. The brakes are very good. They stop you. Obviously, you have the standard dual discs up front. You have your rear, which is disc, and you have the regenerative braking, which you can set to one of 4 different modes, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. But when you do slow down, you do feel that this is a big, heavy bike. The other time that you feel this bike is heavy is when you're maneuvering it at low speed. I don't mind admitting, the first day I had this, I dropped it. And I felt really stupid, because you don't want to admit that you've dropped a motorcycle, especially not a review bike that you don't own. Especially not a $21,000 electric review motorcycle, but I dropped it on the first day. Alright, so we talked about the weight. Let's talk about some of the modes that this bike has. This bike has 4 riding modes, and then it has user adjustable regenerative braking. And how you do that is you click the mode button down here with your left index finger, and it shows you a choice of different performance modes. You can have eco, you can have urban, you can have rain, and you can have sport. And if you knock the lever the other way, the mode switch the other way, you have regenerative braking off, low, medium, and high. And for most of the time I've had the bike, I've had it set on medium. And if you're in town, and as long as you keep your eyes ahead and read the road, you can actually slow down just on the throttle. And it's almost like single pedal driving in a car, except it's single hand riding on a bike. I don't know what you'd call that. What would you call single pedal driving on a motorbike? Answers on a postcard, please. So most of the time I've been riding in urban mode. Urban mode is generally the most comfortable mode to ride in if you're commuting. It's fast off the line, but when you get to about 50, 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, it eases off the reaction it gives you when you twist the throttle. If you have it in sport, then basically as soon as you move your right hand, it kicks in and gives you stupid acceleration. I mean, really, really, really fun acceleration, but nothing that you really need when you're doing your daily commute. It's one of those, it could get you into trouble modes. It's a bit like ludicrous mode, to be honest, on the Tesla Model S or Model X. Then you have rain mode. Now, rain mode is a godsend, because obviously with this 80 kilowatt electric motor, there is an awful lot of the torques available as soon as you open your throttle up. And all of those torques have a tendency to make the wheel want to go very, very quickly. Now, if it's a nice dry day and your tyres are warm and everything else, the bike will respond by propelling you forwards at a brisk pace. But if it's a wet day and there's loss of traction, and you open the throttle a bit too quickly, the motorbike will decide to part company with you by going sideways, flinging you off like a bucking bronco and carrying on down its merry way down the street, scraping all of the nice fairing and everything else that you have and creating a very expensive and timely insurance claim for you at some point in the future. And so what Energica have done is they have put a rain mode in, and what rain mode does is it tempers the throttle response at the low end for when it's wet, so that you don't lose traction, so that you and the bike stay friends rather than become enemies. And I used that on Friday evening last week when I was riding home from work. And the bike was very well behaved. It didn't do anything it shouldn't have done. And honestly, that's, I think, a good measure of how good this motorbike is. Is it a motorbike that you can happily ride in the rain and still have a big grin on your face when it's done? Yes. Yes, you can. I came home a little bit wet, but very, very happy to boot. And then we come to eco mode, a mode that is both a curse and a godsend depending on how you look at it. And for me it was a curse because I didn't look and see what eco mode was until I started riding. And then when I was riding, I realised that eco mode basically means we will restrict your speed to just under 60 miles an hour. And it restricts your power output too. And it's designed to make it possible for you to drive longer distances. Now, that's cool, because if you go back to what I said earlier on about me being a very big flat blob on top of a reasonably aerodynamic thing, turning it into nothing more than a big, fast-moving aerodynamic brick, going slower means that you suffer less losses due to drag, which means you can travel a little bit further on a charge rather than running your battery fat. And I kind of feel that it should have a bit like a launch control agreement when you hit the button. Danger, Will Robinson, you are about to drive dog-ass slow. Are you okay with that? And you have to say yes before it goes into that mode. Because I accidentally, while I was filming this review actually, about 20 minutes ago, I was rolling through the modes, showing you all what the modes were, and I accidentally left it in eco mode. And the interesting thing is, the mode change doesn't happen unless you roll off the throttle. You can change modes while you are riding, but in order to engage the new mode, you have to fully release the throttle and then re-engage it. And so I rolled back for some reason, as I'm doing right now, and then I re-engaged the throttle, and I was doing like 65 miles an hour at the time, and the bike was like, no, I'm going to go at 55 or 60 miles an hour. And that was scary, because I'm like, I have a truck bearing down on me from behind, and that's not good. So as I'm manoeuvring my bike into charging, let's show you the forward and rear low speed. This is a button that you can press. You hold this down for a couple of seconds, and it goes into this low speed manoeuvring mode, which is very useful because the bike is a beefcake. So once you pulled up your charging station, Red Lion Hotel, Salem, start charge. You soon want to start charging, contacting charger. Now we're going to plug this into the bike, like so. Okay. So I'm plugged in, and then we're going to hit start. And then any second, it'll start charging. There we go. 27 minutes to 80%, and then the last bit, I generally let it charge all the way because it's better for the battery pack, says Energica. So there we go. So let's walk around the bike and we'll talk about some of the features of the bike while this is charging. So as you can see, it's a really good looking bike. It's classic Italian design. It's even got the proud made in Modena sticker on it because that's where it's made, Modena, Italy. Lovely exposed metalwork here for the frame. All of the Energica range have this same really beautiful frame. The chain drive, which you might think would make the bike super noisy, but actually gives you just the right amount of feedback to let you know how fast you're going. Classic Brembo brakes, front and back. And here you've got this lovely exposed frame where you can see exactly what's going on. Obviously the motor is just here. It's nice and toasty warm because I've been riding. This is the battery pack up here. And under the seat you get the standard charger. This little inlet port here is where the standard 110 or 240 charger goes. And this is the biggest Achilles heel of this motorbike, other than price. It's a phenomenal riding motorbike. Yes, it's heavy, but when you're moving, it doesn't feel heavy. The extra weight plus the excellent adjustable shocks soak up most bumps, and it doesn't feel like a heavy motorbike when you're riding it. But when you come to charge, if you don't have one of these every 40 miles or so, you're going to spend a lot of time charging up at charging stations. Now, unlike the Zero motorcycle range, which you can buy with a 3 kilowatt charger or a 6 kilowatt charger, or with the latest SRF, you can actually spec 2 6 kilowatt chargers, which have 2 separate inlets, allowing you to charge up at a twin 6 kilowatt charging station. So you get 12 kilowatts going into the bike, and you can fill the bike up in less than an hour. This has a DC quick charge, which does fill the bike up from empty to 100% full in about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the temperature and depending on how empty you are when you arrive. But if you use a standard charging station, the J1772 charging station, this bike only has a 3 kilowatt onboard charger on it. And that's ridiculous. 3 kilowatts of onboard charging, it's not enough. Now, if this had a 6 kilowatt charger on it, as well as DC quick charging, I would be raving about this motorbike no end. But to build a $21,000 electric pocket rocket, pocket beefcake, and not put a 6 kilowatt charger on board makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. This is a motorbike that's built to ride. It's comfortable for long distances. It's totally capable on the open road. You are not going to feel vulnerable at any point riding this thing. It's great on twisty roads, as I'll show you in a bit. But that 3 kilowatt charger lets this bike down. Yesterday I rode from my home in Portland, Oregon to go and see Kate One Elliott and her partner. They are building a house up there, so I went to see them, and I thought it'd be a great chance to test this bike out on the open road. And there is a DC quick charger in Woodland in Washington, which is about 40 miles from my house, so perfect chance to stop and rapid charge. From there all the way up to Olympia, there are no rapid chargers, and because you have a precipitous range drop as soon as you get above about 50 miles an hour, I arrived on very few electrons left, or as one person put it, I see you're on vapor. Well, obviously I'm on electrons, but very few of them left. And I ended up waiting for 3.5 hours for this bike to recharge on a 3 kilowatt charger, which meant that what should have been a 6-hour round trip with 2 hours to see my friends in the middle turned into a 12-hour marathon. And then I enjoyed it. Whenever I get a chance to ride a motorbike, I enjoy it. But with 6 kilowatt charger, I would have been able to have stopped for an hour and a half, and then hit the road again. And an hour is long enough to grab some food at Denny's or wherever you happen to be going, sit in a nice coffee shop for an hour and have a cup of coffee and read the newspaper. That's acceptable. 3.5 hours, not so much. So one of the things that I find frustrating about this bike is the fact that the mode and the indicators are right above each other, and they're both operated by the thumb. And I gotta admit, sometimes I hit the wrong button by mistake, which is not good. But I mean, the same is true really for any other bike, and at least it doesn't have that stupid indicator thing that BMWs have. I hate that so much. If you don't know, if you're not a biker, BMW has controls for the indicators on both handlebars. So your left-hand indicator is on your left-hand handlebar and your right-hand indicator is on your right-hand handlebar, and you operate them with your different thumbs. Now, the standard motorbike indicator is operated by your left thumb, and you slide it left to go left, you slide it right to go right, and you press it in to cancel it. As with a lot of other modern motorbikes, if you hold the switch in on this bike, it makes the hazards appear, which is very useful. I've had to use them a couple of times on the freeway just because people have done stupid things in front of me, and I wanted to let everyone know. When the guy from Energica dropped this off, he said to me, look, there's a really nice dead zone in the throttle where, you know, you can just sit and coast. And I gotta admit, that's exactly what I'm feeling on this right now. It's just a really nice coasty modey thing. When you've got a nice new bit of road like we've got here. It's so sweet just to sit in the middle of the road, enjoy the sun, enjoy the breeze, just ride along. Now we're off the freeway, we've got a nice charge in the battery. I guess it's a good chance for me to tell you what I really think about it. The Energica Esse Esse 9 is the first electric motorcycle that I have ever ridden in which I haven't been reminded at every turn that I'm riding an electric motorbike. You don't need to worry about the performance, you don't need to kind of make any compromises. Ooh, nice gravel. Ugh, I don't like gravel. You don't feel that this bike is compromised in any way, shape or form, because it's not. You know, there's lots of go under my right hand. And obviously that's thanks to that 80 kilowatt electric motor. The handling is impeccable. Sure, it's a heavy bike. But if you've ever ridden a dual sport or anything like that before, you'll be fine with this. And the Energica Esse Esse 9 feels like a high-end, high-performance, premium Italian motorbike that just happens to be electric. I'm going a bit gingerly around these corners because there's a lot of gravel on this road. Just thrown about, you know, just gravel wherever you want it. Gravel and motorbikes don't mix, especially when you're trying to go sideways. It is criminal that this motorbike, as expensive as it is, as high performance as it is, as awesome as it is, does not have a 6 kilowatt charger on board. It just has a 3 kilowatt charger on board, and that makes absolutely no freaking sense whatsoever. Because 3 kilowatts from empty to full on a 3 kilowatt charger is about 3.5 hours. It wants to spend less than an hour on the motorway to then spend 3.5 hours waiting for your bike to charge. Not me. If it was a 6 kilowatt charger, then it would be more excusable, because you could do like 6 kilowatt charging while I was having my lunch, or while I was having my while I was having a bit of coffee. If every major route that I wanted to ride had DC quick chargers every 50 or 60 miles, I would buy one of these if I had the money for it. Because it's fast, it's fun, it's a zero emission electric motorbike. It works incredibly well. But I can't justify buying something that is so awesome to ride that takes 3.5 hours to charge. I'm sorry, I can't. Should you ride one? Should you try one out? Absolutely. If you're a biker and you want to see what the future of electric motorcycles looks like in terms of performance and handling, you should try one of these. But please, tell Energica what I'm going to tell them, which is give us a 6 kilowatt charger, give us better charging. You know, Zero's figured out a way of giving 12 kilowatt charging on a motorbike from 2 standard J1772 charging stations. Why haven't Energica? So that's it. That's the Energica Esse 9. It's a really wonderful bike, but I can't justify buying one based off of that price. It is just prohibitively expensive. It really is prohibitively expensive for no 6 kilowatt charger. Zero has figured out a way of getting 12 kilowatts on its bikes. Energica needs to do the same thing. That's it. As usual, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Don't forget to switch to New Zealand's only zero carbon electricity provider. Ka kite. See you next time.